My name is Ethan Walker, and I thought I had life figured out. Married for 6 years, a steady job in marketing, a house with a white picket fence. Everything felt predictable, safe, and perfectly ordinary. That's why when Olivia Parker appeared in my life, I barely noticed at first, just another new hire in the office. But there was something about her, the way she smiled with quiet confidence, the subtle intensity in her green eyes, the way her laughter seemed to linger in the air longer than it should. It started innocently enough. She asked about work reports, about marketing strategies, about mundane office politics. And I answered, just as I would to any colleague. But then, her questions shifted. She asked about my hobbies, my childhood, even my marriage. I laughed nervously at first, deflecting with polite answers. Yet, I couldn't ignore the way her gaze held mine, as if she could see things no one else had noticed. My wife, Claire, was wonderful in her own way. She had a soft, comforting presence, the kind that made a house feel like a home. But over the years, we had slipped into a routine where words became functional, where attention faded into background noise, and desire dimmed into familiarity. I loved Claire, but somewhere in the monotony, I had stopped noticing the sparks of emotion that once defined us. Then came the evening that changed everything. The office was emptying after late deadlines, and Olivia approached my desk with a folder clutched in her hands. "Ethan," she said softly, almost hesitantly, "can I get your opinion on something personal?" Her voice was casual, yet it carried a weight I couldn't place. I looked up, and she was standing there, framed by the dim glow of the desk lamp, the office humming faintly with the silence of others gone home. I felt an unexpected pull, a sudden awareness that this was no longer just about work. "Sure," I said cautiously, hiding the tension in my voice. She smiled, soft, knowing, almost dangerous, and whispered, "Just let things unfold." I adore that. In that moment, I froze. A part of me wanted to laugh it off, to remind myself of boundaries, to walk away and return to the predictability of my life. But another part, the part one hadn't acknowledged in years, felt alive. Curious. Hungry. Reckless. I didn't know it yet, but Olivia's words were the first thread in a web that would unravel the life I thought I understood. And I couldn't step away. The days after that evening felt like walking on a tightrope. Every glance, every casual conversation with Olivia carried a weight I couldn't ignore. Her presence in the office was magnetic, subtle yet undeniable, like sunlight creeping through a crack in the blinds. I found myself noticing small details, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was thinking, how she bit her lower lip when she was nervous, and the warmth in her voice when she spoke about things she cared about. At home, things felt different. Claire noticed the shift, though she couldn't put it into words. We still had dinner together, exchanged polite smiles, and discussed our routines. But the laughter we once shared felt forced, the conversations perfunctory. I loved her, I truly did, but the spark that had made me fall for her years ago seemed buried beneath habit. I didn't even realize how much I missed feeling seen. Olivia, meanwhile, became more than just a colleague. Lunch breaks turned into longer talks about life, books, dreams, things I hadn't shared with anyone in years. She asked questions that were personal without being intrusive, gentle without being manipulative. I found myself opening up, letting her into thoughts I had kept private even from Claire. And she listened, truly listened, her attention unwavering, as if my words mattered more to her than to anyone else in the world. One Friday, she invited me to a local coffee shop, saying she wanted to discuss a marketing strategy outside the office. I hesitated, both ethically and emotionally, but agreed. Sitting across from her, the soft hum of conversations around us fading into background noise, I realized how easily she drew me in. She had this effortless way of making me feel like the only person in the room. "You seem distracted," she said, eyes meeting mine, steady and curious. "I've just got a lot on my mind," I said, careful not to reveal too much. She tilted her head slightly, her smile gentle, coaxing. "Sometimes you have to stop overthinking, Ethan. Just let things unfold. Life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it." Her words lingered in my mind long after we parted. I tried to brush it off, tried to return to normal, but every interaction with her left me unsettled, craving more conversation, more understanding, more of the warmth she brought into my otherwise routine life. And yet, the reality of my life with Claire remained. She deserved honesty, loyalty, and love, things I feared I was beginning to misplace. Each day, the tension between desire and duty grew, invisible yet suffocating. I could feel the threads pulling in opposite directions, and I knew it was only a matter of time before something had to give. By the end of that week, I realized that the boundary I thought existed between professional courtesy and personal temptation had already blurred. Olivia wasn't just a coworker anymore, she had become a mirror, reflecting desires I had neglected and fears I had long buried. And as I sat at my desk that Friday evening, staring at her empty chair across from mine, I knew the question wasn't whether something would happen, but whether I could resist letting it unfold. It started with small things, little moments that should have meant nothing but carried a weight I couldn't ignore. A lingering glance in the hallway, a casual touch as we passed files, a shared laugh that made the office hum around us and erased every sense of routine. Olivia had a way of making the ordinary feel electric, and I found myself craving it more than I wanted to admit. One Wednesday afternoon, she appeared at my desk with a stack of papers and that soft, knowing smile. "You look tired," she said. "Coffee?" I hesitated. Claire would notice if I went out for hours on a weekday, and ethically, I knew this was a grey zone. But the lure of her attention, the pull of that unspoken connection, was too strong. "Okay," I murmured. At the cafe, she leaned back, her eyes tracing my expression as if she could read the parts of me I didn't show anyone. "You've been distant," she said gently. "I'm fine," I replied, though my voice lacked conviction. "Are you?" she pressed. "Because you don't seem present." Her words hit harder than I expected. How could she see me so clearly when I was married, committed, supposed to be grounded? I looked down at my cup, suddenly aware of how much I had been craving someone who actually noticed me. "Sometimes I feel stuck," I admitted, my voice low. "I love my life, I love Claire, but I don't know who I am anymore." She nodded slowly. "I get that. I think a lot of people live like that, trapped between what they have and what they want. But you can't ignore yourself, Ethan. Not forever." Her words were like a spark in dry wood, igniting thoughts I had tried to suppress. I wanted to look away, to remind myself of boundaries, of loyalty, of the life waiting for me at home. But I couldn't. Her presence was magnetic, disarming, overwhelming in its simplicity. The tension escalated over the following days. Every interaction carried the weight of unspoken possibilities. At work, she'd linger by my desk, laughing at jokes no one else understood, listening to stories I hadn't told anyone. I noticed myself comparing Claire's warmth with Olivia's intensity, a thought I despised but couldn't erase. One evening, after a late meeting, Olivia walked me to my car. Rain had started falling, light at first, then heavier. She held an umbrella over both of us, brushing against my shoulder, and whispered, almost teasingly, "Sometimes you have to stop overthinking and just feel." Her words left me breathless, the air between us charged. I wanted to pull away, to preserve what I had at home, but the pull of desire and curiosity rooted me to the spot. I felt trapped between duty and longing, my moral compass warring with my heart. By the time I drove home that night, drenched and shivering, I knew something had shifted irreversibly. The line between friendship and temptation had blurred, and each passing moment made it harder to remember which life I truly belonged to. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside me, a quiet, relentless tension I couldn't escape, and I realized that the question was no longer if something would happen, but when. It all came to a head on a Friday evening at the office holiday party. The conference room had been transformed with twinkling lights, platters of food, and the low hum of conversation. Claire had stopped by briefly, polite, warm, but perceptibly distant, her eyes scanning the room as if searching for something she couldn't name. I was talking to Olivia near the refreshment table when I noticed Claire approaching. Olivia's smile faltered for the briefest moment, just a flicker, before she recovered, smooth and composed. The air shifted instantly, heavy with tension I couldn't ignore. Claire extended her hand to Olivia. "Hi, I'm Claire," she said, her voice calm, careful. Olivia shook it, her eyes meeting mine for a fraction of a second longer than appropriate. I felt a familiar pull, that magnetic tension that had been building over weeks. Claire noticed it too. I could see the subtle narrowing of her eyes, the slight stiffening of her posture. Something had changed between us, and she could feel it. Later, when Claire was talking to another colleague, Olivia leaned close. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "You look torn," she said. "I am," I admitted, my voice low. All of this, it's more complicated than I thought." "Complicated?" she asked, her tone teasing, yet tender. "You're lying to yourself if you think otherwise. You want something you can't have, or maybe shouldn't." Her words landed like stones in my chest. I wanted to argue, to deny it, to walk away. But I couldn't. Every fiber of me felt exposed, raw, and alive in a way I hadn't realized I could feel. Then Claire appeared behind me. "Ethan," she said softly, yet with an edge I couldn't ignore, "is there something I need to know?" The room seemed to contract, every sound fading to silence. Olivia's eyes dropped to the floor, and I felt a surge of guilt, panic, and longing crash over me all at once. I started, but the words failed me. "You've changed," Claire said quietly. "I see it in the way you look at her. I see it in the distance between us lately." Olivia stepped back, her hands slightly raised as if to excuse herself. "I didn't mean for this," she murmured. But the truth was undeniable. The weeks of stolen glances, whispered conversations, and emotional closeness had left a mark. Claire could feel it, and the fragile balance of my life threatened to shatter in that single moment. I realized then that this wasn't about blame or malice. It was about desire and honesty, about boundaries crossed in silence and feelings left unchecked. My marriage, my moral compass, and my sense of self all collided in that instant, and I knew life as I had known it would never be the same. The room spun, voices returned, lights twinkled, but all I could hear was the thrum of my own heart and the quiet, persistent whisper in my mind, "Just let things unfold." And now, finally, I understood what it truly meant. The weeks that followed the party were quiet, almost painfully so. Claire didn't raise her voice, didn't storm out, didn't demand explanations in anger. Instead, she retreated into herself, moving through our home with a calm precision that was almost unsettling. Every glance she gave me felt measured, every word deliberate. It was as if she were trying to assess whether I was still the man she had married, or if the man she saw reflected in my eyes belonged to someone else entirely. Olivia disappeared from my life in subtle ways. She continued to be professional at the office, polite and courteous, but the warmth and intimacy that had drawn me in were gone. She didn't speak to me outside of necessary work interactions, and I couldn't bring myself to reach out. Part of me wanted to, desperately, but another part, the part that still feared losing Claire, held me back. Claire and I went to counseling, and slowly, we began to speak in ways we hadn't in years. About our routines, our frustrations, our desires, and the spaces where we had stopped noticing each other. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't magical. But it was honest. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like the man I had been trying to ignore, the man who wanted to be truly seen, was finally being heard. And Olivia. She remained a presence in my memories, a reminder of what it meant to feel alive again, of the desires that I couldn't allow myself to indulge. She wasn't the villain, and she wasn't a temptation to overcome. She was a mirror, reflecting the parts of myself I had neglected, curiosity, passion, and the courage to feel. Some nights, when the house is quiet and Claire sleeps beside me, I replay the memory of her words, "Just let things unfold." I adore that. It was playful, almost innocent, but it carried a gravity I couldn't have understood at the time. Life did unfold, in ways I hadn't anticipated, and I learned that desire and loyalty aren't simple. They are messy, complicated, and sometimes contradictory. I've come to understand that moments of temptation don't define us, they reveal us. They show the parts of ourselves we have ignored, the emotions we have left unspoken, and the choices that shape who we become. Claire and I are still rebuilding, still learning, still negotiating the balance between love and understanding. And as for me, I've learned that the quiet pull of a whisper, the softness of a smile, and the allure of someone who truly sees you can change everything, not because they are dangerous, but because they make you confront the truth you've long avoided. Sometimes, letting things unfold doesn't mean giving in. Sometimes, it means learning to see clearly, to choose wisely, and to face yourself honestly even when it's painful.